Hi everyone, welcome to the Unschooling Lifestyle. Today we have a very special guest and her name is Marigol Era. Hi Marigol, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good. You?
I am fantastic and so happy to have you here. And we're gonna tackle shadow work. But before we dive deep into it, why don't you share with us a little bit about you, whatever you would like to share.
Yeah, all right. Um, I'm a mom of, I always say 2.5 because I have like a stepdaughter, which is half of the time here and half of the time at her mother's. So I'm always saying that I have 2 kids and a half.
Yes.
Um, so we've been unschooling for the most part of our parenting life.
Okay.
And I've been doing shadow work for much longer than that.
Wow.
Yeah, so my oldest is 11 and my stepdaughter is 10 and my youngest is 5
Okay.
and so yeah, so we're living the unschooling way of life since like I'd say 11 years.
11 years. Now,
Yeah.
were you natural? I think you were naturally drawn to unschooling, right? Or was there a specific, did something happen? Like, how did you came to this lifestyle?
Yeah, it was like you said, I was always really drawn to alternative way of living.
Yeah,
And so when I got pregnant, it was like the natural way to do it was like to co-sleep and to have her like without any diapers in the home and to respect her space and let her evolve with freedom. It was just the natural way. Like I didn't read any books. I didn't research anything.
I love it.
It was just the natural way
Yes.
of doing it for me. And so as like every human being, like there was some shadow coming in, and
Yes.
my biggest one was about money, and I was a single
Okay.
parent at this time. And so I got like a little freaked out, and so I thought, why not go back to university and study something and make myself a career, I
Okay.
was never into career, like I never had one. It wasn't like really important for me, but since I
Okay.
was like the provider of this children, that my little girl, like I want to have her to
Yes.
have everything she wanted to have, right? So I decided to go back to university.
Okay.
And so that's the moment when I put her in daycare, and it took me like I'd say like 2 years of that
Yeah.
way of life to realize that it wasn't for me.
It wasn't
And
what you wanted. Oh my goodness.
and I got like really disconnected from my kid, and I felt like I didn't recognize her anymore, and she had like a behavior that I wasn't like aligned with, and I
Okay.
wasn't aligned with her as well. So she was always sick. She was always like, like
I remember
cold and like the flu and like, but she
that.
was always, there was always something. And so I thought, well, her body isn't lying, and like her body is telling me something, so I have to stop for a minute. Like I'm not like providing her with the right stuff, you
Hmm.
know.
Yes.
I wanted to have the money, so I did what most people do. You go to school, and I always love school. Like I always
Yeah.
like love to learn.
Yes.
And but I had to stop, and I took her away from I just started to keeping her more and more, and like, not going to school. And then like and then at this moment I was with my husband, and he was like, well, maybe you should just stay with her and I can provide the money.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, let's try it. And then when I took her out of that daycare, that's where I found Brookhampton and Dana Martin and this French family that was more like a world schooling kind of way
Okay.
of living, which was really appealing to me as well. And so I just like, it just made sense,
It just
you
makes
know?
sense. Yes, and I love what you said about being aligned. Like you slowly, like you started to feel how not in alignment she was with her body, and you were with the way of providing for her, right? That's not, that wasn't what she needed. So
Exactly.
when you start seeing those things, and then is there some like well, before we go into shadow work, can you briefly explain, how do you define shadow work? Like, what is it? Because I know when we met, I had no idea, I had no idea what that was. And when you were talking about it, I'm like, but what is that? So can you just explain
Yeah,
a little bit of what shadow work is in your own words?
yeah, sure. I mean, like it's based on the work of Carl Jung, and since the beginning of my studying I was always really drawn to him, and I really liked what he was saying. He's a psychiatrist, and he was the one like introducing the shadow work and doing it on himself at first, and so he was like just trying to discover like what's behind us, you know.
Okay.
So what is behind our action, you know, and what is in the shadow, what is behind, um you know, sometimes we're just gonna act on something, on an emotion or on a trauma, or
Mm,
you know, based on the trauma. Oh, I did that one time, and then that was the result and it was really bad, so I'm not gonna do it again.
uh-huh.
Right. And so he got really interested in that and then started to write, and like, so it's basically like being more aware of what's in the
Okay.
shadow.
Okay. Yes.
I would say it like the simplest way would be that for me.
Yes. No, I think you're right on that, because I think, so many times we act on emotion and we get triggered and we act on just what triggers us, but we don't really take time to dive deep as what brought that trigger, right? And
Yes.
so as you were like working on your way to, like, getting your daughter out, was there some shadow coming
Oh
coming
yeah,
out, because
so many.
all of the stuff. So how did you work through that? What was coming out for you?
Well, the main thing for me was, like I said, I was a single parent at the
Yeah.
time, you know, and the lady that helped me, the one that was in charge of the daycare, was really really sweet, and she fell in love with my daughter and she wanted to help me, but she took like a lot of space, you know, and she even got like, my daughter got like a room in her house, like she decorated the room
Oh, wow.
for her, like she bought like new sheets and like a bed and like dryer and like clothes, and it felt like a really overwhelming for me, you know, to
Yeah.
have my
Oh,
daughter like,
yes.
you know, because at the beginning she just like, the lady just offered me to keep her one night, you know, because I was like in my mid session and there was like so much work to do,
Mhm.
and so she just proposed to me, I can keep her for one night, and then like you can have the whole night to work and like the next morning and stuff. And so I was
You're
like, all right, let's try this. And so that's how it began. But then it got out of control, and then she
yeah,
started to
right.
be another mother for my kid, and then
Yes.
she started to see my kid more than me,
Oh,
right? Because my daughter was going to daycare, so it's 5 days a week, and then she was sleeping there once in a while, and then
yeah.
like, and so like, you know, like I came back that one time to pick her up, and my daughter's got like really curly, like really big hair, curly, like as it's like,
Uh-huh.
it's always a mess, you know. And so I come back to get her, and she's got like this straight hair, and she's like dressed like with a dress, and you know, like she's all like not herself. And so I was like, this is not a doll, this is my daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah. So
crazy. That's wild.
yeah, that was a really big trigger to lose my place as a mother,
As a
because
mother, yes.
yeah, so this was like, and then my daughter even started to call her mama, and she let her call her like that. And so I had to sit with her and say, you know what, I'm really uncomfortable with that, like this is
Yes.
getting out of hand, and like it's just not working for me. Like I think she was overcompensating the fact that she couldn't have children, and she got like
Okay.
really attached to my kid. And so
Yeah.
since I was a single parent and she wanted to help, and like it just
Yes.
like
Yes.
snowballed. Like,
Definitely. Oh my God, it sounds like it. So what did you do?
yeah,
That's wonderful.
I had to take responsibility for the fact that I actually allowed that, right? So I
I love
actually
that.
said yes, you can actually keep my daughter
Yes.
those nights because I really needed it to work, you know? I
Yeah.
needed it to finish my paperwork, and like this was like university. It's not like just college, you know? It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so I had to take responsibility for that at first because it wasn't
I
her
love
fault really. It was my fault. I am the one in charge of my own life, and I chose to let her go there.
to do that. I love that. Yes.
And so I had to take responsibility for that for myself, and then to acknowledge the help that she gave me also, you know, because it was really like welcome for me. Like it was important for her to be there, you know, because I was alone. And so I had to recognize that as well. Like I could have just gone over there and say, this isn't gonna work, and I'm gonna take my daughter out, and you're crazy, you know.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
have just done that and act on the emotion, but it wasn't like gonna work for either of us. You know,
Yes.
my
It was
daughter was still
super
attached to
friendly.
that lady, you know. She loved her, and she was like, yeah, so there was like a lot of like
That is
under.
so, so powerful because when you said self-responsibility, because I feel like I know one of my biggest, not struggles, but I want to say probably discovery from unschooling was the fact that I had to take self responsibility for my actions and for my feelings and not have to blame them on other people and especially my children sometimes because I would be like, well, you made me do this. And I'm like, no, don't be rude. Like, that's not, their job is not to make you feel better. My
Right,
job is to make me feel better and
exactly.
act upon what's triggering me, right? So,
Yes.
and I feel like so as you work through the shadows, like how do you, I know it took a while for me to get to this point. So when you're new to it, how can you begin the shadow work if you've never heard of it, if you don't like, but you can feel the emotions that something's coming and you're like, holy moly, like what's coming? How do you begin to work on that a little bit?
Yeah, like even with my kids, the first step, because the kids, like, their emotions are wild all the
Yes.
time. It's just
Yes.
like pops, you know, poop.
Yes. Hmm.
But to just like rationalize that the actual emotion, it's 90 seconds. That's all.
What?
All right. And so you got to just keep that in mind. The second thing you do is to observe. You just sit there and
I'm
observe.
sitting
It's
with my emotions.
90
You
seconds.
just said that. I'm like, my emotions last much longer than that, Marigold.
Right? So the actual emotion is like 90 seconds. So, but what happens is you get triggered, and then your mind just jump in and like start to just, like talk to you and like make scenarios and like, like distract you from the real thing, you know?
Uh-huh. Yes.
And so it feels like the emotion is really, really, really long, but it actually really takes 90 seconds. And so my best example of that was my stepdaughter, which was very afraid. She was scared all the time. All the time. She was
Okay.
like always, always scared. And I worked with that last year a lot, but just like to just, hold her shoulder like that. So she have a contact with her own body.
Okay.
Because when you got like the emotion, it's like a wave,
Okay.
and it will like drown you if you're not like still in your body. You're just like, yeah, you know.
Oh, wow.
So you just touch your own body. All right, it's 90 seconds. You just let it pass. It's like a wave. It's exactly like a wave. That's how I explain that to the children. It's like when you go by the sea, there's not gonna be a wave that's gonna do like this and gonna stay there. The
Yes.
wave's gonna be like this, and then it's gonna
And
come back.
it recedes back. Yes, yes.
So that's the emotion. That's
Ah,
super easy to understand. Even children get that. And so you don't act when you're in this state of
in the same
motion.
way. Yes. Hmm.
It's you just sit tight for 90 seconds, it'll pass, and then after that you can say, oh yeah, okay, so that was like either a big wave or a small wave, and what happened, what triggered it. And like, so you can journal, you can meditate, you can talk to someone. But like, this is the way I raise my children. Even like, this
Okay.
is the, like, when they're like stuck in their emotion, it's time to just get back in their body.
Wow.
And it's nothing else. You just get back in your body, so you're not stuck in there, and
Okay.
you just like remember the motion of the wave.
That's
And
so
how,
cool.
yeah, how absurd it would be to go by the sea and a wave just like keeps going, and like just stuck there. Like, it's absurd. Like, it would never do that. Nature would never do that.
Would never do that. Yes. That
So
is
you
so
just,
powerful.
yeah. So, and kids, they react really well to that example. I saw it with my own children and with children that I used to work with too. It's it's just emotion. It's like, it's something that it's in motion.
Wow. And then it just goes away. So once you let
And
the emotion pass, you feel it, I know nowadays, like I let it pass and I kind of dig a little deeper. And my son would say, we were at an airport in Mexico City and he was doing something and I don't know why it was bothering me so much. And I was like, Anthony, can you like not do that? And he's like, but why? And I'm like, you know what? I don't really know why, actually. That's a great question. He said, well, I said, let me find out. Let me dig deeper. He said, well, take a shovel because you have to dig really deep. I was like, yeah, apparently I do. And it really like, I don't know why I was triggered by it, but so you let the emotion feel and then you start digging a little bit as to
yes,
why it came or
yeah, like, yeah, like, let's take this example. So like, your son was doing something that was bothering you, and you
yes,
guys were in public.
yes.
And so, like, what was the emotion?
It was more like I was more annoyed at the movement, but it was definitely I know for for since our journey being in public with people that may perhaps are not familiar with the equality that I give my children as people and as part of our family. I know
Mm,
sometimes it still has an effect on me per se because there are all those eyes that say, well, who's the parent here, right? Like I'm
yeah,
supposed to put that dominance over my children when they are just when we are I consider them as equal as part of our family. So definitely the public. So that would be what? The ego, maybe, of what people think of me as a mother, right?
yes,
Oh, okay. Well, they,
yeah. That's as simple as that at the beginning,
yes,
like, so what would people say? And what's the worst that's gonna happen? Like, someone's gonna come at me and say that I'm not a good parent. So how, like, what's the big deal with that? Like, I just have to stand in my own value.
yes,
I value honoring my children. That's fine. This is the way I am. It bothers you. It bothers you.
yes, it bothers
But
you.
when you stay in that like fear,
Mhm.
because for me it's fear. It's fear of like what people are gonna say.
Yes, 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 yes.
And it's like, it's very overwhelming, that fear. And like, you could get like even paranoid, and you're checking out like,
Yeah.
is this one
Oh my
looking at me?
God.
Is
That's
he
so
looking at
true.
me? Just shush,
Yes.
just,
Mm.
they're gonna say something. And children, what is great with them is like, first of all, they really don't mind about that.
No, they just
They
don't.
just don't care at all.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
when your kid is actually saying why, this is such a gift,
It
because you can see the absurdity for him.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes, 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 yes. 1,000 times yes. And my son was recognizing how absurd, right? My fears
Yes,
were.
yes, because kids, the way they're interacting with shadow, like it's pretty new for them. Like they're not like they're brand new.
Yes,
so so my daughter's the same. Like she will say like, why are you so triggered by that? And I'm like, well, like I have so many past experience that wasn't really cool, and then so that like it's like scar, it's just
yes,
like you got a little scar, and then like a trigger will reopen that scar, and then you don't want it, like you don't want to reopen it, and so you're just like, no, 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 this is not gonna happen, and so you just like usually what you're doing, it's just you pushing it away.
pushing it
But
away.
your
Yes,
kid your kid is like just gonna
yes,
point out like the absurdity of the thing, and so like for them it's absurd, but for you it's not, because
yes,
you have the trigger. But it's just like you can use it like just as a reminder that it's not so, like it's not such a big deal,
yeah. Hmm.
at large.
Yes, it really isn't though at large though. And I really love that. And I want to say, like, ever since we started unschooling, like I have noticed we have gone through this like evolution that my son will feel more comfortable, questioning me and asking questions. And you're telling me, like, why are you saying that? Like that's that we were at the park and I said, well, we're not gonna go to the trail because it closes at 6:30 and you guys were like staying behind, and he was like, no, I was technically in front of you, so I really wasn't keeping you keeping you you know staying behind because I was in front of you. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And he said, well, why are you saying that? And I was like, thank you. I'm like, thank you so much for pointing that out. But and I really love that, though obviously I there's a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
you know, from myself, but also for any unschooling parent or people that are starting to unschool, to go into this journey. How important
Yeah.
is shadow work? I mean, right?
Yeah, it's like for me it's a key. It's a
Yeah.
key. Like it's like when you begin unschooling, you're such like it's so new, and you get like a lot of triggers because it is new, and you can feel like you're on the fringe, or like you're not doing it right, or like it's not like it's a path that not a lot of people that have worked, you
Mm,
know
yes.
and even myself, like sometimes I doubt this path, and I'm like I'm just screwing my kids.
Yes.
But
Yes.
then I have to come back because this is just again a fear, a shadow, a shadow that was like for this, like yeah, I'm gonna go in that. Like when I got pregnant, like people around me thought that I wasn't a great fit to be a mother, and
Mhm.
so they told me that I should get an abortion. And it got like it felt so right for me to have this children, this one kid, this one, like it wasn't a part of like what I wanted to have in life, but when it happened, that
Yes.
was the right thing.
Oh, I can totally
And
relate to that. Yeah.
right. And so like no one could ever question that. But it left a little like scar that I have to prove myself. And
Yeah.
so when I feel like my kids are behind, or like they're just like spending so much time behind their screen, or like, whatever happens, and I feel like so much pressure
Yes.
on me because I want to prove people,
Yeah.
wrong. Like you were wrong. I am a good mother, and like so
Mhm.
to just realize that this is one of my shadow,
Yes.
and so if I don't realize that, I'm gonna put pressure. That pressure that is so hard to bear for
Yes.
myself, I'm
Mhm.
gonna put it on my kids
Your child. Yeah. Yes.
because that's what we do.
Yes. Oh,
Because it's so freaking uncomfortable.
that we
And
cannot
so
bear it.
we
Yeah.
don't we can't bear it, so we're gonna put it on someone else. And
Yes.
when you're unschooling, the first people that's gonna get it, it's your kids.
Yes.
And
And
so
oh my goodness, that is so, so powerful though, because and he's because it's not fair, because we spend so much time with them that if we don't do this work, this internal work, this shadow work, this self-responsibility, we
yeah,
are just going to do as much damage, if not more,
if not
probably,
more.
that if they were in a system of, in a school system per se, like if they didn't have the freedom, because we are the people that they trust the most, right?
Yes.
So, oh my goodness, that is so, so powerful.
Yeah, we're everything for them. So when they go to school, they have like, let's say they had this feud with their teacher, all
Hmm.
right? But they always come back home to tell their parents if
Yes,
they're lucky. But like they can tell
yes,
their parents, they have like this safe space. But we're everything.
yes,
Like when we're unschooling, we're, for me it's like building a tribe. And so everybody's got a role, and
yes,
everybody's gonna like teamwork, and like it's all about cooperation. And
yes,
so if I'm in my trigger and in my shadow, how can I be a great leader? How can I like just like tell my kids, we got to cooperate. If I'm not
yes,
cooperating even with myself, it's,
exactly.
and it's going to be a disconnect for them to see that.
Hmm.
And so it's for me it's my responsibility
Yes.
to do shadow work.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to say that's probably, when we started again, and for people that start on schooling, I think there's a point of like feeling overwhelmed, because of I had to do work, I had to do shadow work that I was not ready to do, that I, in all honesty, I did not want it to do. I was like, I put that behind for a reason. I am
Yeah.
not going to work on it. And then my son came like, no, I don't think so, lady. You want to live this path, you want to live this lifestyle, you got to work on it. So it was like really overwhelming at that point to decide, yes, this is what I need to do, or like, no. But I knew that we cannot continue a journey of unschooling if I did not work on that.
Yes.
So, and I know you have helped other parents, try to overcome this. So what are you, like if somebody relates to this, how can you help them? What are your offerings, I guess I could say?
Yeah, that's a great question. um yeah, like when I coach people, I will go like I will go really deep with that. And what's my offering? Like it depends on the people,
Oh,
it
yeah,
will depend. Like if someone wants a one-time meeting, it's cool. If someone wants a meeting that is like more consistent, like we can do monthly, and we can do like a couple times a month. Or like with unschooling, I felt like if I wanted to have a structure, too much structure,
it's
it
hard.
wasn't going to work with unschooling parents, because
Yes,
we don't, like, our structure is like very flexible for most
yeah,
part.
yeah,
And so to have like a meeting every week, sometimes it's even too much. Or
yeah.
so I will go with like where they at,
Okay,
what
I
what
love that.
they,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I think most people, like especially non-schooling, I think people have rhythms, like I know a lot of people, when they ask questions about how unschooling works or what it is, it's like they want structure, like they want that, A to Z type thing on your day. And it's really, I mean, and I am actually trying to write a post on that, but as I'm writing, I'm like, hmm, there really isn't a structure per se, but there's a rhythm where everyone
Yes.
equal and everyone's needs are are met. So but self-responsibility work, I highly recommend it to anyone that is starting to unschooling. Do you think
Oh yeah.
people can do, I was thinking about people that sometimes they want to unschool, but for one reason or another they can't, for whether it's job, an economic reason,
Yeah.
something. Do you think people that are still in, within the school system, how can they work on their shadow and still try to work, within a system that for one reason or another, they are just not able to leave? at this point? What do you
Yeah,
think
well,
you can do?
yeah, I think that shadow work is for everyone who wants to go there. It is not an easy path. It
I,
is like whether or not you're unschooling, if your kids are going to school, you're gonna have so much trigger,
yes,
so much trigger with the school system, with your teacher, and with this little kid that's bullying your kid, and like how you deal with that, and like are you gonna go and like scream at the other parents or go
yes,
to the, to the teacher or like whatever, the principal, or like it can
yes,
build up, when
exactly.
you don't take care of your shadow, and
Yeah,
it's so much easier to just put it on everyone, but it's like if a person is going to school and wants to do shadow work, like good for them. I think it's a good idea, and you can always observe. You don't have to be unschooling to observe your
yeah,
trigger,
yes.
right? Like you can just sit for 90 seconds and just like watch the emotion. Like you don't need to
Yes.
have the unschooling background to do
To
so.
do it.
So
Yes, yes. I wish the shadow work had come first before unschooling, but for me it was the other way around, right? It was unschooling and then it was the shadow work. So
yeah.
I continue to do it. Do you have any like quick resources if people for some reason are there any websites, are there any books or anything that you can think of at the top of your
Well,
head that was like super helpful?
yeah, well, as I said, like anything that Carl Jung wrote back in the days, even though it's really old, I think it's
It's
still like
good. Okay.
it still holds up. Um, for me, like at the beginning, I was really into astrological, like the sign, this. I'm a Gemini, and like I was really into that, trying to figure out myself
Yeah.
with this tool. Then I found human design, and then I found the gene keys, and but
Yes.
like the first tool that I had discovered, I remember it was like first grade. I learned how to write, and it was like, boo, an epiphany. I
Yeah.
can write stuff. No one's gonna know
Yes.
what I'm writing, and so I started to have those
Yeah.
journal,
Yes.
and like if I had kept them. Like I had journals since the first grade. I started to
Okay.
write and I was like, this is it. This is my tool. And so, but it's different for everyone. You can like my husband will go like writing music. That's how
Okay.
he's gonna process, you know? Like um my daughter's gonna want to talk. And my other daughter's gonna want to just like move a lot when she's in the shadow, She wants to move
I love
through it.
that. The different
And
ways that we
so
can do it, those that. So I'm so glad you brought your husband up actually, because I was thinking, do you think that is the shadow work, you just said your husband goes to read music to work on it, but is it the same for men and women? I feel like, we're so different and I can sit with the emotions. But I know for my husband and I, when we started unschooling and when we were not on the same, on the same level of, yes, this is what we want to do.
Mhm.
It took a lot longer for us to find those triggers were that prevented him to meet me where I was at, like with all this like full force, yes, let's do this, right? So is it different for men, and have you worked with men before in shadow work?
Yeah, I did. It's a little harder. Like
Okay.
they're not like the one that I worked with, like and from what I've known, from what I've seen, like I think that women's are most like willing to do it, but like some men's are capable of doing it, that's for sure.
Of
Like
course, I think
but
yeah.
it's maybe just less in their interest, in their
Okay.
first interest, like maybe.
Okay.
But like with my husband, when I see him getting really triggered, like we will sit together and I will like because like his first um the first thing that he's gonna do is gonna like he's trying to shut down the trigger by doing some actions. All right, so
Okay.
he's
Okay.
gonna go like like I don't know, like run with the dogs or work on the house, or and then
Okay.
he ends up getting hurt. So he's gonna like, snap his finger or like twist his
Yes.
back, and then I'm like, well, maybe we should have talked before you go and like
Maybe we should talk. Yes.
try to avoid everything. And so over the years, I think he got it, like, and now like he's more open to it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when I see him getting really triggered, I will like just try to ask him if he's like open to sit and talk a little bit before, like, because I don't want him to get hurt. And so I will
That's
just
fa-
like
that's fascinating. Yeah. I was thinking about that because I feel like, I feel like as women, like we do all this work. And then I would come to my husband and I would tell him, I would be so excited. I'm like, oh my God, look what I learned and this about myself. And my husband would like, like, yeah, okay. But I know that he was like there with me and sometimes that he needed to do the same things, but he wasn't just like, it wasn't like, he wasn't just as open as I was to like, like go dive deep into it. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, they have to get the value of it.
A value.
If they're winning something out of it, they're gonna be more willing. But
Yeah.
it's like that with the kids as well, like if my daughter is like having a crisis with my other daughter and like they don't see the purpose of getting through it, and
Uh-huh.
they prefer to just fight it. so,
I
so
love
they have to see like what's the purpose and what they're gonna win at the end.
Yes, yes.
So
That
that's the way I like to put it.
That's so amazing though. So, as we what your last words of encouragement for people that are starting to unschooling or have just recently learned about shadow work, what would you say to them to, encourage them? What would you say?
Just take a deep breath. It's
Ah,
gonna be it's gonna be fine.
it's gonna be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a wave. It's all right. And yeah, you just got to go through it.
Yes.
And yeah.
I love it. I love it. Marigold, thank you so much though. So one last thing, I'm going to put all of your information, but just can
Yeah.
you let people know how can they get a hold of you if they would like to have a session on shadow work with you or even unschooling? Marigold is a very experienced unschooling. She's like she said, she's been unschooling for 11 years.
11 years. Yep.
11 years. So, even for any of the things that you talked about, how can people get a hold of you?
I'd say like Facebook is the easiest,
The
I think.
easiest? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds
so
perfect too.
yeah, you can put a link on my
Yes.
profile if you like. That's
Yes,
cool.
we'll definitely put a link for Marigold's profile on the description of this video. And
Yeah.
then we'll go ahead and add some of the sources that she mentioned. And yeah, so take a deep breath, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, Marigold. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was really fun to see
Thank
that.